Welcome to your deep dive on Aarti Pharmalabs Ltd. You requested we go beyond the typical company profile, and that's what we're going to do today. We're going to cover the historical background and a deep financial analysis and look at their impact on the industry.
It's a really interesting story.
Yeah.
Aarti Pharmalabs, they're really a fascinating case study. I mean, they sit at the intersection of science, global market dynamics, and this increasing focus on social responsibility. We're going to try and cover all that for you.
Okay, so let's get started. Who is Aarti Pharmalabs and how did they get here?
Well, their journey started back in 2001 as Aarti Organics, part of the larger Aarti Group conglomerate.
Okay.
So they have over 20 years of experience in the pharmaceutical world, which is pretty significant.
Yeah.
And eventually they transitioned to Aarti Pharmalabs Ltd, which signals a more focused approach to pharmaceuticals specifically.
Got it. So they've been around for a while. What exactly is their core business now?
Well, they specialize in generic active pharmaceutical ingredients, or APIs, as they're known in the industry.
Got it.
These are the core components that make medicines effective. On top of that, they produce advanced pharmaceutical intermediates, which are crucial for API production. And they're also involved in xanthine derivatives.
Oh, interesting.
You might know one of those. Caffeine.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. So they're not just making the final drug product, they're making all the ingredients for it.
Exactly. They're the building blocks.
Wow.
For a huge range of pharmaceuticals.
Okay. Is this mostly for India or are they on the global stage?
Actually, they're focused on regulated markets.
Oh, okay.
Which means they're committed to high quality and international standards.
Got it.
It's really essential in this industry.
Yeah.
They've gotten accreditations from major regulatory bodies.
Oh, wow.
So that allows them to operate globally.
That makes sense. Yeah, quality control is crucial.
Yeah.
When you're dealing with people's health. So what else can you tell me about their global presence?
Well, they're not just selling ingredients. They also offer what's called contract development and manufacturing organization services.
Okay.
You might know it as CDMO-CMO.
Okay.
Which means they actually help other pharmaceutical companies develop and manufacture products.
Wow. So they do everything.
Yeah, from early stage materials all the way to the final drug.
So they're a true partner for these companies.
Absolutely.
They're not just a supplier, they're in it with them.
Exactly. And they're doing this for all the phases of drug development.
Yeah.
Phases 1 through 3, the launch phase, and even commercialization.
Wow.
So it takes a deep understanding of the whole pharmaceutical life cycle to do that.
Right. Okay, so we've got Aarti Pharmalabs, a company with a long history, global reach, commitment to quality. Now let's zoom out and look at the bigger picture. How is the pharmaceutical industry doing as a whole?
Right.
I mean, the past few years have been interesting with COVID and everything.
Oh, it's been very dynamic.
Yeah.
The global pharmaceutical landscape, in 2023, the World Health Organization declared the end of the COVID-19 public health emergency.
Right.
And we saw this shift back to a broader focus on health.
Right.
There was a renewed focus on preventing and treating all kinds of diseases, both communicable and non-communicable.
So like heart disease, cancer, diabetes, all that stuff.
Exactly. All the things that never went away.
Right.
But we kind of took our eye off the ball.
Yeah, for a while.
Yeah.
Where does Aarti Pharmalabs fit into this new world?
Well, they're operating in key segments that are seeing growth.
Nope.
Like, for example, antibacterials and over-the-counter products.
Yeah, that makes sense.
These areas are only going to see continued demand as healthcare systems adjust.
Right. We can't rely on antibiotics forever, but they're still critical.
They are.
And over-the-counter medications, those are always in demand.
Absolutely. People want solutions that are convenient and accessible.
Right. And we can't forget about public healthcare spending, which has a huge impact on this industry.
Oh, it's huge. Governments all over the world are allocating more funds to healthcare.
Right.
Which creates opportunities for companies like Aarti Pharmalabs.
More funding means more research, more development, more treatments, hopefully better health outcomes for everyone.
Exactly.
Sounds like a good time to be in pharmaceuticals.
Yeah.
But I'm sure it's not all easy.
No.
What are some of the challenges?
Well, one of the big ones is navigating these complex drug pricing regulations.
Okay.
Particularly in the EU, the US, and the UK.
Okay.
They're trying to control costs, which is good.
Yeah.
But it makes it really difficult for companies to balance profitability and affordability.
Right. It's a delicate balance.
Yeah.
Yeah. You want these treatments available to everyone, but you also need these companies to stay afloat.
Absolutely.
So it sounds like the industry is a bit of a roller coaster, ups and downs, but ultimately moving forward. So where does Aarti Pharmalabs stand in all of this? How are they doing financially? Are they holding their own in this competitive landscape?
Yeah, let's dive into their financials and see.
Okay.
One of the first things you notice is the difference between domestic and export sales.
Oh.
80% of their revenue is from exports.
Wow, they're a global player.
Yeah, only 20% is generated domestically.
That's impressive. Do we know what therapeutic areas are driving this revenue?
While the data doesn't give a breakdown by segment, given their presence in regulated markets, it's safe to assume they're active in many areas.
Okay.
You know, cardiovascular disease, diabetes, oncology.
Yeah.
These are global concerns with huge markets.
Right. Constant need for treatment. So they're making revenue from exports, but are they making a profit? What can you tell me about their profitability margins?
Well, their EBITDA margins have seen a slight decline recently.
Okay.
It's something to watch, but overall they're healthy.
Okay, so a dip, but nothing crazy.
No, they're still generating profit.
Right. That's good.
Yeah.
What about their profit after tax? Are they seeing growth there?
Absolutely. Their PAT has been on a consistent upward trajectory.
That's great.
It shows they're managing expenses well and translating revenue into profit.
So consistent growth is a good sign. How are they managing costs so effectively?
Well, one of their key strategies is backward integration, especially for their APIs.
Okay.
By producing their own raw materials, they gain control over the supply chain and reduce costs.
That's smart. Especially in a complex industry like this.
It is.
They need to be constantly innovating, though. What's happening with their research and development? Are they working on any new drugs or specialty products?
Yeah, their R&D is quite interesting.
Okay.
They actually start developing advanced intermediates for new APIs before the patent on the original drug expires.
That's smart. They're anticipating what's going to happen.
Exactly. They're not just reacting, they're being proactive.
Okay.
And to support this, they opened their third R&D center in 2023.
Wow, a serious investment. Okay, so all of this innovation has to be paying off somewhere. How are they doing in terms of market diversification? Are they entering new markets or mainly sticking to their existing territories?
Well, they've had remarkable success in regulated markets, especially in the U.S. and the EU. Their Terrapur facility has approvals from the U.S. FDA and the UGMP.
Those are some of the strictest out there.
They are. So that shows their commitment to quality.
Yeah, for sure. What about other regions? Are they expanding beyond the U.S. and the EU?
They have approvals from Japan, Korea, Mexico, Brazil, and China.
That's impressive. They're truly a global company.
Yes.
Now, what about emerging markets? Are they tapping into the potential there?
Well, the information we have doesn't say anything specifically about emerging market performance, but it could be a significant growth area for them.
That makes sense. Emerging markets are often growing rapidly, increasing healthcare needs. So a good opportunity for a company like Aarti Pharmalabs.
Yeah, okay.
A company can have all the approvals in the world, but if their financials aren't solid, it's all for nothing. What's the story with their financial health? Are they managing debt effectively? How's their cash flow?
Well, one of the most positive signs is their consistently positive cash flow from operations.
That's good. They can cover expenses and invest in future growth?
Exactly.
Okay.
Now, we don't have data on their debt levels.
Okay.
That's something we'd need to explore further to assess their overall health.
Yeah, we need to know how much they're carrying and how it impacts their flexibility.
Absolutely.
High debt can be a drag on a company.
It can.
But manageable debt can be useful for financing growth. It's all about balance.
Exactly. And we also don't have details on their working capital management.
Right.
Which is crucial for smooth operations.
Yeah, managing inventory, collecting receivables, paying suppliers on time. It's about keeping things running smoothly. Okay, we've painted a pretty good picture so far. But no business is without its risks. What are some potential stumbling blocks that Aarti Pharmalabs might face?
The sources highlighted a few key risks. One is their reliance on a limited number of suppliers for raw materials.
Okay.
Their backward integration helps, but they're still depending on certain suppliers.
Right.
In fact, over 10% of their purchases come from their top 10 trading houses.
So any disruption with those suppliers could be a problem.
Yeah, diversifying their supplier base could mitigate that risk.
Makes sense.
Spread the risk.
Exactly. Another risk is health, safety, and environment,
Yeah.
or HSE, as it's known.
Got it.
Given their business, any incidents in these areas could have regulatory, reputational,
Right.
huge consequences.
Yes, and business continuity consequences.
When you're dealing with chemicals, pharmaceuticals, safety, and environmental responsibility are non-negotiable.
They are.
Any misstep could impact the whole organization. Are there any other risks they should be aware of?
Yeah, they also acknowledge information technology risk.
Yeah.
This is critical for any company, but especially in pharmaceuticals where they handle sensitive patient data and have to comply with regulations.
Yeah, data privacy, cybersecurity, data security.
Yeah, all of that is paramount.
They need to be constantly adapting to new threats.
They do.
A data breach could be devastating for a company like Aarti Pharmalabs.
Absolutely.
They need to be investing in robust cybersecurity measures and staying ahead of the game when it comes to digital threats.
Yes. And one final risk is employee turnover.
Oh, interesting. Why would that be a risk?
Well, high turnover disrupts operations, leads to loss of expertise, and increases costs for recruiting and training new employees.
Yeah, it suggests there might be problems with employee satisfaction or career development.
Exactly. You want a work environment where people feel valued.
Right.
So they have all these risks on their radar, but what are they doing to mitigate them and build a more sustainable and responsible business?
Let's get into that after a quick break.
Actually, before we get to their sustainability efforts,
Okay.
there's one more thing about their risk factors that I think you'll find interesting.
Okay. What is it?
So in their sustainability report, they quantify their raw material risk. Okay. It turns out that in fiscal year 2024, almost 49% of their key raw material suppliers underwent assessments.
So they're looking into it?
Yeah, they're trying to understand the risks in their supply chain.
Okay, but what are they assessing? Are they just checking if these suppliers are financially stable?
It's more comprehensive than that.
Okay.
They're also looking at the suppliers' environmental practices and their social responsibility performance.
Okay, so it's like they're doing due diligence on their business partners.
Exactly,
Yeah.
to make sure that their own values and commitments are reflected in their suppliers.
So it's not just about the bottom line.
Yeah.
It's about aligning with companies that share their values.
Yes.
Okay, so that's really interesting. But let's get back to their overall efforts when it comes to corporate social responsibility and sustainability.
Right.
You mentioned green chemistry before the break. What exactly does that involve?
Right, so it's about using cutting-edge technologies
Right.
like biocatalysis, flow chemistry, and loop reaction technology.
Mhm.
These techniques are designed to minimize waste and conserve energy.
So they're really taking concrete steps to be environmentally sustainable.
They are. And one of their most ambitious projects is a solar power plant,
Wow.
which they're building. And once it's up and running, it's expected to fulfill 1/3 of their power needs.
That's incredible.
Mm,
Not only is that good for the environment,
right.
it's also good for their bottom line, right? Because energy costs can be really volatile.
Absolutely. It's a win-win situation.
Exactly. And they're not stopping there.
Yeah.
They're also looking at waste reduction, right?
Yeah, they're implementing things like
Mhm.
reducing sludge volume and recovering boiler steam condensate.
So it sounds like they're not just paying lip service to sustainability.
No.
They're really weaving it into every aspect of their business.
Exactly. And it's not just the environment either.
Right. You mentioned they were supporting nomadic communities in India.
Yes.
Can you tell me more about that?
Sure. They've partnered with an organization called VSSM,
Okay.
which supports nomadic and denotified communities
Okay.
in the state of Gujarat. And they're working together to develop something called Vallabh Vidya Vihar,
Okay.
which is a residential, educational, and vocational training campus.
Wow, that's ambitious.
Mm.
What's the goal of this campus?
Well, the goal is to provide schooling, skill development, and vocational training for children from these marginalized communities.
So it's a long-term investment
It is.
in breaking the cycle of poverty.
Exactly.
That's really heartwarming to see. You know, that they're going above and beyond to make a difference.
It is. And you mentioned in the intro that there are some intriguing details about Aarti Pharmalabs. Can we talk about those now?
Yeah, for sure. What were some of the things that stood out to you?
Well, one thing I found interesting is their dedication to employee training and development.
Okay,
They're not just hiring people, they're investing in their workforce.
that's smart. In today's world, continuous learning is essential.
It is.
Yeah.
What are they doing specifically?
Yeah, what are they doing to support employee development?
Well, they're taking a multi-pronged approach.
Okay.
So they're increasing the average number of training hours per employee,
Okay.
and they're also developing a digital platform
Interesting.
specifically for employee training.
So it sounds like they're creating this culture of learning and growth.
Yes.
Which is a big attractor for talent these days.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, what about diversity and inclusion?
Right. Is that something they're focusing on?
Yes, they are committed to building a more diverse and inclusive workplace.
Okay.
And they've implemented initiatives to promote diversity at all levels of the company.
Diversity brings new perspectives.
It does.
New ideas, new experiences. It can only help a company.
Yeah. Have they seen any results from these efforts?
Well, they have seen an increase in female workforce representation.
Okay.
Which is a good sign.
Yeah, it shows that they're taking concrete steps. Okay, so we touched on their financials earlier, but I'd like to dig in a little deeper. Can we talk about some specific numbers related to revenue and profitability?
Sure. Let's look at their consolidated income statement.
So their operational revenue for the most recent quarter, Q2 of FY25, was 3,773 million Indian rupees.
Okay, and how does that compare to last year?
That's a 6% increase.
That's a healthy increase.
It is.
It shows they're continuing to grow.
Yes.
What about their profitability for that quarter? How is their EBITDA?
So their EBITDA for Q2 FY25 was 3,421 million Indian rupees.
Okay.
Which is a margin of 17.59%.
That's a decent margin.
It is, but you'll recall that we mentioned their EBITDA margins had declined slightly.
Right.
And this is actually lower compared to the previous quarter, Q1 FY25, which was 20.84%.
That's a noticeable difference. Why do you think that happened?
Well, it could be a number of factors.
Okay.
It could be seasonality in the business.
Right.
It could be increased expenses.
Okay.
Maybe some pricing pressure.
Okay.
It's something we need to watch in the coming quarters to see if it's a trend.
Absolutely. What about their profit after tax? How did that look for Q2?
So their PT came in at 1,935 million Indian rupees.
Okay.
Which is a margin of 9.95%.
That's solid.
It is. It shows they're effectively converting revenue into profit.
For sure. Investors also like to look at earnings per share.
Right.
Or EPS to understand profitability on a per-share basis. What was Aarti Pharmalabs' diluted EPS for Q2?
Okay, so their diluted EPS for Q2 FY25 was 21.35 Indian rupees.
Okay, and how does that compare?
Well, to fully understand this number, we'd have to compare it to previous quarters, analyze the trend, and also benchmark it against others in the industry.
Right, it's all about context.
Exactly.
Okay, so speaking of the bigger picture, let's look at their historical consolidated income statement. Yeah. What are some key takeaways from their past financial performance?
Well, one of the most striking things is their consistently increasing operational revenue over the past few years.
That's great.
It suggests they're growing their business and capturing more of the market.
Steady growth is a good sign.
Yes. What about their EBITDA?
Yeah. Is it following the same upward trend?
For the most part, yes.
Okay.
It has been increasing, which is good. But as we said, there have been some fluctuations in the margins. With that dip in the most recent quarter.
Right. So there might be something underlying there that needs further investigation.
Right. What about their profit after tax?
Yeah, is that growing too?
Yes. Their PAT has also been trending upwards,
Okay.
showing consistent growth. So they're managing